Good afternoon, everyone. I've never done this before. I'm going to start by just sharing right at the outset what I consider bittersweet news. We have, upon reflection and discussion with my loved ones and my mentors and my team, decided to bring to a close one campaign and to throw our support without equivocation behind the mayoral campaign of Sheila Dixon. This was, as you might imagine, not an easy decision. And I want to share with all of you how I got there, but I need to first share with everyone how proud I am of what we have been able to achieve in just 3 short months. When we entered this race, it was because of the love I have, the love all of us have for this great city. I still don't know of another city in this country that has a bigger distance between where we are and where we could be, and that leadership is needed to unleash that potential. Over 3 months, we have fought and worked so hard. My team has done things that people said were not possible. We pioneered and proved that public financing can work in Baltimore City. We not only qualified, we shattered records with over 1,000 small city donations, proving that a campaign can be a voice for the people, first and foremost. We have elevated, I hope, discussion around so many issues that are vital to the future of this city. Issues around which I think Ms. Dixon and I concur. Cutting property taxes, the importance of universal pre-K for every 3- and 4-year-old, critical issues that face our city when it comes to climate change, to expanded public transit. The debate around Harbor Place was on no one's radar. And yet here we are, just a few months later, having taken these issues and put them center stage. I'm so proud of my team for fighting so hard and believing in an outsider and the importance of elevating the voice of a person who believes in this city as much as anyone. But leaders have to make hard decisions. And the reality is that over the past few days, over the past few weeks, I have reflected and I have spoken with many leaders in the city. I've spoken at length with other people in this race. And it became increasingly clear to me that it was important to show the people of Baltimore what unity looks like, what it means to put small differences aside for the sake of a broader purpose, a bigger vision, a greater goal. Sheila Dixon loves this city with all of her heart. She has her whole life. In many ways, in ways that I understand, she has devoted herself to public service. She has devoted herself to trying to make this city a little bit better. We've all stumbled. It's how you respond to those stumbles that defines you. And redemption, for me, for all of us, is a journey. And I think that she and I understand and appreciate that sometimes you have to earn that redemption through public service, through the work for the people that you love. I have come to see in her a capacity for growth, a capacity to understand the vital, complex issues that this city faces. 4 years ago, in that window when we thought Sheila Dixon was going to be mayor, I remembered getting calls and people saying, what do you think? Is there a way you could work with her? And without flinching, you can ask some of those people, I said, absolutely. She's a person that believes in the best of Baltimore, that assembles great teams. We've had a lot of differences. She's called me names, I've called her names, but the one thing that no one has ever accused Sheila Dixon of is not being able to build a great team, being able to build people and bring people together of different backgrounds, of different expertises, and getting them on the same page for a common purpose. Now more than ever, that is what Baltimore needs. The reality is that what she has shown in her time in public service is in stark contrast to what our current mayor has demonstrated. I simply can't stand to see another 4 years of what we have seen. The dysfunction in City Hall, the lack of accountability, the making of excuses, the abdication of responsibility, the constant patience that one day down the road something will get better. I'm sick of it. I want an impatient mayor. I want somebody who is ready to deliver now, that is not quite literally learning on the job and is still learning on the job. If you want the moment I made this decision, because I'm stubborn. There are a lot of people on my team that wanted us to run through the finish line, no matter what. And I've had conversations, but the moment this decision became an easy one for me is when the mayor not only manufactured a bunch of facts, hoping that the reporters weren't paying attention, but the moment he said, the reason things aren't getting done is because the trucks just arrived in March of 2024. That's why apparently the trash isn't getting picked up. That's why the potholes aren't being filled. That is not leadership. That is being an old-fashioned politician, pretending that you've done something when you've done nothing.
What about Donnell Rochester?
I will tell you right now that what has been most frustrating to hear over the last couple of years is seeing the mayor pass out blame, come up with excuses for why basic things weren't done. First, it was that Governor Moore wasn't here yet. So his first 2 years, he couldn't do anything because he didn't have a governor that was his buddy. Then it was that there was so much that COVID caused. Mayors have to rise to the occasion in the face of crisis. Mayor Dixon faced crises. She governed in a period of profound recession. There were difficult decisions she had to make back then. But you didn't hear her say, that's why I couldn't do anything. She said, that was why we did things this way instead of that way. Many of you have heard me quote Mayor LaGuardia. LaGuardia, the famous mayor in New York City, once said, if a pigeon dies in Central Park, blame me. It's my responsibility. That is not the kind of leadership we have seen out of Mayor Scott. That is the kind of leadership we have all seen under Sheila Dixon. It was Abraham Lincoln that coined the concept of great government being a team of rivals, that people who believe in our better angels, who believe in a better and grander vision for the city, can put aside subtle differences and come together with common purpose for a common goal. That is what we are doing.
What about Donnell Rochester?
We obviously don't agree on everything. I don't know that that's a good idea for us to agree on everything. And so one of the things that we want to do is to make sure that people in Baltimore understand that there is more at stake in this election than just politics. It was not an easy choice to draw to a close our campaign. It was a hard choice. I love running. I get joy out of it. But there is something bigger at stake. The future of our city is at stake. And Brandon Scott imperils that future. Sheila Dixon is now our best hope of moving this city forward. And so with all of my supporters' blessings, with the conversations I have had with loved ones, with my family, and with Sheila, I am here to tell you that I am proud to support and endorse the next mayor of Baltimore, Sheila Dixon.
When you run a campaign and you believe that you are the candidate, as I believe that I am the candidate, and as Thiru believed he's a candidate, and that you're going to win, and you're going to win for the people of this city. You know, I am humbled and honored to have your support. You have been a powerful advocate for those who have been overlooked or left behind. You have shined a light on many critical issues that too many of those in power have chosen to ignore. And the one thing that comes to my mind is the houses on North Avenue that fell apart, whoops, as a result of a water main break. And Thiru didn't make excuses to those families who lost their homes. He stepped up. And I will never forget that. And I always applauded you for that. I didn't applaud you personally, but I always said to others that that's what's needed in this city. Choosing to step up out of this race is evidence of your love for Baltimore and your willingness for the best of Baltimore. You know, I think we all know that your ideas have turned our city around, could fill 2 encyclopedias at this point. Most of the times we Google it now versus using encyclopedias. Your strategies are thoughtful and well articulated, and you look forward to working, and I look forward to working with you to explore them. I would now like to address Thiru's supporters directly. I understand that you're frustrated with the current trajectory of this city. You're tired of paying high taxes as other jurisdictions are paying lower taxes for the quality of services they're getting. You keep hearing that crime is down, but you still don't feel safe in your communities. I believe and I know that Thiru and I and others will work towards the betterment of this city. And I'm not saying that standing here today. I mean this out of my heart, and I don't commit to something that I don't feel I can achieve and accomplish. You're right. There are many things that have gone on. Thiru and I have not agreed on everything. One area that I was going to definitely take him up on that we discussed yesterday at the debate was that system of the 311 and tracking that. That's just one example of many. But Thiru and I agree about much of what happened in this city. Our love for this city, what needs to happen in this city, and to be able to work to move the city forward. And so I am humbled and I am appreciative. And let me say this, I got into this race not to create political enemies, not to do this for any politics with my agenda, but because of my commitment and love of this city. And he and I have talked, and he has great ideas that could be so instrumental in making a difference in this city. And the one thing that I've done over the years, no matter if somebody supported me or didn't support me, I've always brought people to the table for the betterment of Baltimore and the citizens of this city. And so we have a lot to do. I'm thankful that Lawrence Bell, who is a former council president, is here. I know he wants the best of the city and others, and I'm looking forward to working with Thiru to make this city better. And so I'm grateful and humbled, and we've got 2 weeks. Early voting starts tomorrow, and then we have the primary on May the 14th. And so I'm hoping that we can get people to talk about our partnership, that we're going to work in order for me to be successful to be the next mayor of this city. Thank you.
Look, I'll be very candid. I shared with Sheila my ideas and my shared vision for this city. I told her the same thing that I told Brandon Scott 4 years ago, which is I want to be helpful. Let me know how I can be helpful. The only deal that we made is to commit to seeing Baltimore become the city that we know it can be. And I got a good job.
Did you have similar conversations with Mayor Scott about whether you would work with him?
You know, out of respect for a long-standing policy of mine, I don't talk about conversations with principals unless we are here together to talk about them.
He says you met with him this morning. If you were planning to endorse Sheila Dixon this afternoon, why didn't you meet with him this morning and offer to endorse him?
What I will tell you is that's a question for the mayor to discuss. I don't talk about private conversations.
Was there a path to victory for you? Did you just determine that it just wasn't there with everything split?
Yeah, look, we of course pay attention to the situation. I don't think there's anybody who is surprised to hear that Sheila had a clearer path, and I wanted to help her get there. The reality is that I did want to extend the courtesy to other people in this race to let them know what was happening. I'm not going to say more about the conversations, Emily, than that, but I do think it is an important act of grace to make sure that people know what rivals are considering.
In a recent interview, you talked extensively about how proud you are to have public financing, and you, by name, talked about the Smith family, the Lukemeyer family, and you expressed that you felt they were puppet masters controlling the political scene. I'm curious, I believe that is the word you used, I'm curious how your conversations went, given the fact that they are funding a super PAC, which I know operates independently from the campaign.
Yeah.
From the state campaign, but I'm curious about how you navigated that tension.
Yeah, it's a very fair question. The reality is that when I look at the kinds of things Sheila has been talking about, they are things that I know are important to her. I will also tell you that I think Brandon Scott would love to make this race about other people besides Brandon Scott. It's a great distraction to talk about others. I shared that, Emily, as you know, with respect to my own fears about being targeted by the folks that have targeted us in the past. That had very little to do with Sheila or Brandon. I think that's a Brandon tactic as much as it is anything else. The reality is that Sheila Dixon has a commitment to this city that is very difficult to question. She may be the only person that is going to run for mayor as many times as I am. And the reason for that is not because we're stubborn. It's not because we don't understand the difficulty of it. It's because we love this city and we are dissatisfied with what we see at present. And I am so proud to this day of using public financing. I think I will use public financing for as long as it is available in this great city. It does, I hope, take the corrosive influence of money out of politics. That's a decision I got to make. And what each candidate does is a decision for them. But when I talk to Sheila, when I hear her hopes and dreams for the city, when I hear the kinds of people that she knows are needed in government, that's the kind of shared vision that I was excited to get behind.
Ms. Dixon, you've also made public comments expressing concern about Thiru's allegations toward Thiru about problematic behavior at work and harassment. I wonder if you can walk us through how you overcame that and deciding to work together.
So not to go into a personal conversation that Thiru and I had, but we had some discussions about many of the issues that you're raising, and we had a heart-to-heart conversation. And people don't know what challenges people are going through, and sometimes, based on the media, we don't get the entire story. And I respect the fact that Thiru and I met. We talked about some concerns that I had. We've gotten those cleared up based on our conversation. That is important. And believe me, when I made the decision and when we talked about this, and he wanted to be a part of my efforts moving the city forward, and he was ending his campaign, we had a lot of conversations. Just like the question that you brought up about David Smith and that whole effort. As I made it very clear to people, I don't know David Smith like that. And David Smith doesn't control what I do and how I do. It's about the people and the voters of this city. And I make it very clear to others. There are a lot of people who don't necessarily live in this city, but are committed to the betterment of Baltimore City.
Ms. Dixon, can you talk about where you see the trajectory of this going now? This is so close with this announcement, like you were saying. Tomorrow's early voting.
Yes, it is.
Where do you see this going moving forward?
You know, the momentum, there are people who still are on the fence and haven't decided. And so we need to continue to build on that momentum, continue to reach those voters, to share with them what our shared vision is, but also my main concern is getting people out to vote, because we have a very poor turnout in this city, and it should be a lot larger than what it is. And so it's really about getting the message out and getting people out to vote.
Thiru, the mayor has been saying for months that we weren't going to have weekly recycling until the trucks came in. So can you be a little bit more specific to exactly when you decided you made that decision?
I mean, look, I was using that as a cute illustration. Last night, you saw a mayor manufacture figures and facts to make it seem as though things were better than they were. I think he said that chronic truism in Baltimore is down on his watch. That is mind-boggling to me. He literally claimed that the question that was asked was about graffiti and potholes, and he literally said that the trucks just got in. The notion that after 3 years of failed leadership, that a mayor is able to stand up on stage and with a straight face continue to represent that things are going in a good direction when everybody in Baltimore knows they're not, continue to manufacture facts and excuses, it worried me. And I don't know that I expect a mayor to solve everything. I do expect a mayor to solve some things. And when after 3.5 years, the best you can do is pat yourself on the back for things that are happening nationwide and things that include the second worst homicide rate in America and the worst mass shooting in Baltimore history, I think you've lowered expectations a little too low.
I'd just like to add to that, because trash, recycling is... 2 years ago, I met with Mayor Scott and Jason Mitchell, who is a neighbor of mine, to say, partner with the private sector. There are companies that want to partner with you to be able to pick up the recycling as well as help you with the trash, and so many people are home. And so nowhere else in the state of Maryland did recycling stop but Baltimore. And so that is a time where you partner with the private sector who is committed and want to help you with the city. We're the dirtiest city in America. It should not be that way.
Can I actually use that as an example, if you don't mind?
No.
It's easy to point to things where Mayor Dixon and I disagree. We're political rivals. It's going to happen. It's an election season. I'm going to say tough things and she's going to say tough things. But when you get to the brass tacks of governing, something like picking up the trash is important to us. And when a mayor who has been there says, why are we the only jurisdiction in the state of Maryland that didn't pick up the trash during COVID? You've heard me say that every other jurisdiction in the state uses private trash haulers. Prince George's County has 5 private trash haulers, and that during COVID, they picked up the trash. Those are the points of convergence that we need to build upon, right? Some principal distinction on, Palestine, like that is not what running a city is about. And a supporter asked me this on the way here. They said, can you articulate why it is that someone who is leaning towards Brandon, if it wasn't for you, now ought to vote for Sheila? Like, what is your rationale? What is your pitch for Sheila over Brandon? I said, I'm going to spend the next few days, the next few weeks talking about that at great length. But let me start with this, and it was the first thing I said in the car. I said, the sharpest distinction I see between Sheila Dixon today and Brandon Scott today is the distinction between humility and arrogance. I think being in public service requires a measure of humility. It requires us to be humbled. And in our own ways, we have. And out of that, I think, comes a capacity to listen, a capacity to grow, a capacity to build on other people's ideas. That is not what I think a lot of us see in Brandon Scott. I think you said it during the debate. It's the frequency with which he uses the pronoun I. I. I was the one who did this. I did this. Actually, Brandon, I'm not sure you did any of that. But even the things that you did, I imagine a whole team of people helped you do that. That hubris, that arrogance, that lack of willingness to listen and to engage a person with whom you disagree, it's dangerous. And I have said before that I have a measure of compassion for our young mayor because I remember being that age. I remember thinking you knew it all. I think he still does. And I think his approach to so many problems our city faces is broken because he thinks the only person who could possibly have the answer is looking at him in the mirror. And I haven't seen that in Sheila Dixon ever. Certainly not in my time of knowing her.
You called Ms. Dixon a good team builder. And have there ever been any jobs that you specifically discussed with her that you would want in her administration, including CEO of schools or police commissioner? Has that ever been discussed with her or any other candidate?
Look, I got to be candid. Those conversations are conversations about a shared vision for the city, willingness to work together, a evaluation of the political gauntlet we have to run. I don't think it's ever constructive to talk about that kind of specifics. It's not helpful. The reality is that there's a lot of different important roles in government. And as I told Brandon 4 years ago when he prevailed, as I would have told Sheila Dixon 4 years ago had she prevailed, I want to be of service. And if you haven't figured it out, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep fighting. I've lost a couple of elections, and each and every time I have tried my best to dust myself off and come back and fight. And I will continue to do that in whatever role the people and the public and my faith calls me to.
So what would your dream role of service be?
My dream role is mayor.
Well, in Dixon's administration.
Look, that is a question for the day after Mayor Dixon wins. That is a question for Mayor Dixon and her closest advisors to wrestle with. I want to be helpful. And I think there's a lot of ways I can be helpful. I can be helpful from the outside. I can be helpful from the inside. I want to be helpful.
Have you discussed with the folks that manage the city's fair election fund, what you can do with your publicly matched dollars now that you've dropped out?
We are very familiar with the options that are available to us.
And what you spend them to support Ms. Dixon in any way?
Those are the kinds of conversations that we're going to save for another day. Can I just end by saying this? A small sliver of people have voted. The reason we're doing this today, the reason I'm doing this today, is because the most important election in a generation starts in earnest tomorrow. And I am asking everyone who loves this city as much as I do to look hard at the choices that we have. I stepped out of this race so that you could focus on Sheila Dixon. I stepped out of this race so the people that know how much I love this city, who have put their faith in me, will now put their faith in her. The reality is that this city desperately needs change. And change can come in a lot of different ways. It can come from taking a person who's been there, who has learned, who has built teams, who has been there during a time of progress, and bringing it back to spark the Renaissance. What change is not is repeating the failures of the past 4 years. And so I am here today to, with some bittersweet in my voice, draw one campaign to a close and throw my unequivocal support behind Ms. Dixon, because if you ever thought Thiru had good ideas or passion for this city, and that's why you were ready to support me, I am asking you personally to throw that love and enthusiasm and energy behind Ms. Dixon, because the alternative is unacceptable.